Everybody, before we lay out the actual hammerhead on the metal, we're going to do a layout on the board so you can kind of see where we're at here with this thing. So, what we have here, I'm going to try and draw it to scale so it makes a little bit more sense as we go to do it. This here is going to be our solid block of 1-inch square steel. Okay? So, I'm just going to describe the dimensions on here quick. As you can see, we have, there's a lot going on with this. But we are 1 inch tall and we are 3 inches long. So right now it looks kind of deceiving because this is much larger. But so we can see the detail, actually let's change our dimensions up so they look professional. Get rid of this guy here. Okay, so this is our piece of material here, 1 inch tall, 3 inches long. And we want to lay out first the nose of the hammer, and then we want to lay out the back side of the hammer. So, to lay out the nose of the hammer, what we want to do is actually split this into 3 equal sections. So, I'm going to use a tape measure as just a point of reference. And I'm going to use a couple different color markers here so we can differentiate this thing a little bit. So, our mark is going to be right here. And we'll do it on this side. So 3 inch hammer, 3 inches long. We're going to take, like I said, we're going to separate this into 3 equal parts. And that's going to help us kind of determine where we're at with this. I'm going to use the purple marker to split this into pieces. And you'll see why here in a minute, why it makes more sense to do it like this. So if we look at the CAD drawing, the nose of the hammer is going to be 1/4 of an inch. Okay? So that 1/4 of an inch we want to mark. When you go to lay it out on your actual piece of material, so we know we have 1/8 inch or 1 inch tall, we want to put a center line across here. That center line is going to tell us where the exact center is of the project. So from where our center line is, we want to come up 1/8 of an inch, and then from our center line, we want to come down 1/8 of an inch, and that's going to give us our 1/4. So I'm going to do that in black. I'll do it in green marker so you can see what we're cutting. So this is our center line mark right here. Oh, green's dead. We'll go to brown. This is where our center is. We're going to come up 1/8 of an inch, and then we're going to come down 1/8 of an inch. Okay? So right here is 1/8. My other 1/8 is right here. Now, to cut the profile of the hammer, what we're going to do is connect our 1/8 inch line to the top corner of this. And that's going to shake down the nose of it. So we're going to do that. You folks going to lay this out, you want to use a scratch awl. We can take and put a little bit of layout dye on the project so it's easier to see. And then we will, you can scribe it with a scratch awl. Like I said, that'll make life much easier. So that's the nose of the hammer. We're going to take and actually cut that with a hacksaw, and we're going to demonstrate that for you. On the back side of the hammer, there are 4 chamfers, and those chamfers are 1/8 inch around, and we'll do a second layout for the back of this thing so it lines up and you can see it. For our 1/8 inch chamfers, we're going to come down 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and we're going to put a mark from the bottom. We're going to come up 1/8 of an inch. We're going to make a mark, and then we're going to take from where our mark is down to our corner where 1 inch is, where our breakdown is, and that's where we're going to make that. Now these marks for the back corners, the back chamfer, you're going to make these marks all the way around the entire project. on the back side of it. So not just on one side, you're gonna make this mark on all sides. So my suggestion, when you go to make these 1/8 inch marks, I would use a combination square. I would set it to 1/8 of an inch, and then I would run it around, okay? And that's gonna be the most accurate way to lay that out, okay? Now, so this will be the front of the hammer. We'll write this in black, front. And that's also, we'll call it the nose. Okay, and this here's the rear. We'll call it the tail. So we can differentiate those. Now, the other thing we're going to do with this, we're going to drill a hole in the center of it. We need to put threads in it so we can screw that handle in we just made. So, I already have a center mark in here. We are going to drill a 3/8 diameter hole. Now, to go from the center, where the center of that is, we'll use the brown marker again here. We're going to go completely through the project, okay? So the first thing we'll do is we're going to make our center line, we'll call that a through hole. We'll make that all the way through the project. Now, these lines are usually dashed. The center line is usually dashed. So I'm going to make this a dashed line. Okay, that's what that looks like. Now the outsides of this thing are going to be solid. Now, it's a 3/8 of an inch. That is going to take me to, I'm trying to do this to scale for you folks so it's a little bit easier to see. So it's that'd be 2, 4, 6 inches. So I need 3 inches on either side of this. Let's see here. That's 3 here. Mark this on the bottom for you. And 3. Okay. Now, right now it looks like I'm slicing it in half, but I'm actually just drilling that hole all the way through. Okay. So we'll take like this. And we could, normally you could do a different pattern for this. You could do a dash and a dotted, or dotted and dashed, excuse me. Okay, we could take and make it look like it's breaking through there so you can kind of tell what it is. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is, I'm also going to write this up in here so that you can see what it is. When it's all said and done, by the time we thread it, we're actually going to do a 3/8 thread, but we need to draw a 5/16 hole. So we're going to say 5/16. This, we'll do that mark there to say that that is the hole that we're going to drill. Okay, 5/16 diameter, and that's what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to take and loosely scribe the dimensions on the hammerhead here. So we have our 1 inch here. We said this can be 1/4 in the center. We'll put this one on the, we'll go like this, slide it to the outside. Okay, and we would adjust, we basically want to say that this is 1 inch back. So we'll do the same exact thing. We'll come down like this. Normally you would put the smaller dimensions first, the larger, but I did it backwards, so we'll work with it. Okay, 1 inch here. Let's say this here is 1 inch. Okay, on the back side of here, we already know it's 1 inch tall. We'll say this is our 1/8. And we'll also do the same thing on the bottom. Okay, I'm going to take and clear out another space on the back of the board. I'll show you the back layout of this thing, and we'll show you how to set that up also, because you're going to have to draw that up and lay it out. Okay, so that's the hammer layout looks like. we will do the back side, show you what that is, and move from there. Okay, last thing to do is lay out the back of the hammer. So what we have is our 1-inch square, okay, it's indicated by the dimensions, and we need to lay out the back of this. So what we're going to do is put a chamfer cut on the back side of here. In order to do that, we are going to measure down 1/8 of an inch from each corner. We're going to make a mark, then we're going to measure over 1/8 inch on our opposite corner, and we're going to make it diagonal across the back of here. So, with that being said, we'll do these in brown again so we can see where our cut lines are. So between those 2 points, and we will do this all the way around the object. And then we'll draw our diagonals all at the same time, and that way we can kind of save ourselves a step here. It's important just to take your time on this layout. We don't want to rush through it. We're going for kind of accuracy on here. This project does take a little bit of time. It does take a little bit of effort and some sweat. So don't be afraid to, once you get this thing going here, yeah, you'll see me sweating while we're working on this project here. It's a lot of manual labor. So that's what our corner is going to look like. We're going to take, like I said, an 1/8 inch down, 1/8 inch over, and we'll throw some dimensions on there so you folks can see what that looks like too. Okay? These will be our layout lines. And sort of how we did the sheet metal projects, you don't have to be, I don't want to say prim and proper, but you can let the dimensions overrun the material. If they run off the edges and stuff, it's not the end of the world. We can let that roll. So we have those, and like I said, we'll throw some dimensions here. So we said this is an 1/8 inch down. These are always a little tough because they're so small, but 1/8 inch down. We'll just do an 1/8 inch over. And that's what it looks like, okay? So this is the rear view, okay? We'll take and do this on the actual material so you can see what that looks like too. Okay, folks? Okay, so we're going to take and cut our material down. So here's our piece of 1-inch square stock. Now the easiest way to lay this out, in my opinion, I'm going to take a combination square. I'm going to loosen up the brass nut on here. I'm going to take and set my combination square to 3 1/4. So in the previous layout demo, we talked about laying the project out 3 inches on the board. That's what we did. You're going to say, why are we cutting this thing down to 3 1/4? When we first cut this thing, this material is not square. So we want to leave a little bit extra on there so we can file that down and adjust it and make that material square. So I'm going to take my combination square. I'm going to make a mark at 3 1/4. Okay, so we can see where we're going to cut. Now, we're going to take this thing, we're going to put it inside of the horizontal bandsaw. We're going to want to use the stand for this because this piece of material is a little bit longer. We don't want that hanging off the edge. So we'll take our material, set that up here. We're going to put open up our vise, okay, slide our material across. We next want to snug up our vise. We're going to take our blade and we're going to put that right on our cut mark. Okay, that's where we're going to cut this thing to length at. We're going to take our feed rate control on the saw, turn it to the right all the way. Okay, we'll pick up the head of the saw, plug this thing in, and now we're ready to cut. So, machine on, take our feed rate control, turn that to the 1 o'clock position, and nice and slow, we're going to let the head of that saw drop down and cut the material off. Okay, this is a shorter piece of material. Do not take and put your fingers in next to this thing like you're going to catch it when it falls, or when it does fall off. Let it fall off and hit the ground. It's not worth losing your fingers for. Okay? So right now, the blade's making contact, and this saw makes quick work of it. You will see this material has a coating on the outside of it. It's a grayish black color. That is called mill scale, M-I-L-L-S-C-A-L-E, mill scale. And that's from production in the steel mill. So that's nothing that we did or something like that. But we'll show you how to get rid of that once the project is totally finished. There's no sense in trying to sand or clean this thing up right now. We'll wait until it's totally done. Once it's totally done, we'll show you how to get rid of that, and we'll make this thing shine up pretty clear. Okay? So we're just about through. Okay, there it is. We'll shut our saw off, unplug it. And that is our piece of material that we're going to start with, okay? Now, you can see the saw marks in here from the horizontal bandsaw, so we have to take and address that. Now, I can tell by looking at this thing, this is not square, so we need to address that also, okay? The first thing we do before we go anything further, we're going to take and stamp our name in this, so let's go do that. Okay, so we have our letter stamps here. We're going to take and stamp our name into here. Now, for this project here, because we're using this thicker metal, I would suggest using the small letter stamps. Okay, do not use the large ones. These are much easier to hit and put the indentation in the material. The larger letters, you figure they have to go over a much larger surface area. It's going to take a lot more of a strike to do that. So once again, on the letter stamps, just like on the sheet metal, make sure your thumb is on the groove, and we know that our stamps will be in the correct direction. They won't be upside down, backwards, whatever. Okay. Whoa, watch your fingers. Okay, so initials are in here. You can see those. We are now ready to start filing. Let's grab that one that we lost at the end there. Put these back. Now, the next thing we're going to do is file this thing square. So, we're going to put our material inside of a vise. Doesn't matter what side goes up. And we're going to snug this up. And next thing we're going to start filing. Okay, I'm going to go grab the proper file. I'll be right back.